All right, you guys. Welcome to the Current River Fly Shop Podcast. I'm your host, Guy Jeans. And I got Rusty Brown here. What's happening, Rusty?
What's going on, Guy? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm super stoked to have you here. And I know it was a big deal for you to get here because you were guiding today. Where were you guiding at?
I was up at Lake Castaic.
How was it over there?
It was pretty good. We caught a fair amount of fish. Last couple of days have been a little bit better, but you know the temperatures are warm. But fishing's been good up there. A lot of smallmouth, largemouth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I can't wait we're going to talk about all that stuff for sure. I didn't know there was smallmouth in Castaic. I'm a smallmouth geek. I'm going to talk to you. I don't know if you know this, but the first time I saw you, I want to talk about that. And then the first time I met you, the first time I saw you, I was fishing. And I was on Lake Isabella, and there was a bunch of people fishing crappie. And I was too. And we were over at Kissett Cove.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I didn't know you. And you don't know this story, but I'm telling you this story. But everybody's fishing the banks, by those trees over there at Kissett Cove at Lake Isabella, and everybody's fishing towards the bank. And then I hear this boat coming in, and you're kind of behind us, all these people, and you're behind us fishing like the main cove, right? And the cove's big and everything. And I just happened to turn around, and you like cast this big old, I'm not sure what it was, right in the middle of the cove, right? And I think it was your first cast. You just nailed this monster bass. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Just pulling up and just tearing it up, right? So that was my first time I ever saw you, because I recognized you, later on. And then I think we kind of got to know each other at the Fred Hall shows, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was so cool about that was it was like, you just like came up into the booth and just introduced yourself, which I thought was really cool. And then you would venture off, and I think you would do your seminars and stuff, and then you'd venture back and say, hey, what's going on and stuff. I thought it was really cool, man. So I really appreciate that, when you came in and stuff. So is that what you remember too?
Oh, yeah. That's
okay.
Absolutely. I know I'd see all the shows, doing your booth, and it's always cool. It's cool talking with you and coming up and introduce myself to you and become friends. And and we have a lot of not only fly fishing, but you love bass fishing too. So that's cool.
We're going to talk about that, man.
That's awesome.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Tustin, California. Kind of an Orange County boy, but more outdoorsman guy. It's kind of mostly. People think of Orange County as beachy, you're in the surfing and stuff, which is cool. But I grew up there, went to Tustin High and, been fishing up here since I was 3 years old. So, with sports and stuff like that growing up, and then coming up here on the weekends as much as I could fishing, it was cool.
So were you just coming up with your dad fishing on Isabella?
Yeah, coming up with my dad and my grandpa and my uncle, so we'd come and, all of us would be up here. And at that time when I was younger, didn't have a boat, so we'd float tube the lake and did more fishing in the Kern on the trout fishing than anything.
Did you?
Just wet wading. A lot of the guys that know I bass fish, I grew up, the trout fishing's been my love for a lot of years, and then the bass fishing's just been what I do. So, but the Kern River is the best trout fishery in my opinion. You can go all the way up to Johnsondale and beyond and catch as many trout as you want at certain times of the year. So, but I learned how to fish from the Kern River, to just the way the trout positioned himself in the eddies and the flies that they would eat, and, the rocks when they change color and the sunlight, and you learn a lot. Trout fishing is similar to bass fishing in a lot of ways, especially when you're doing the stream thing, because everything's finesse and you got to be very cautious when you pull up on a trout in a pool, or same as a bass. You can't just come rolling in with your motor and doing all that. So, but I just fell in love with this place. I grew up here. A lot of my friends fished Big Bear. That was kind of their home. But when I was younger, it was like, my dad always had the place up here, so it's like it's an excuse to come up.
Okay. So you guys, where's that, in Isabella?
Kernville. We're right here.
Oh, you have a place here in Kernville?
My dad's got a place right off of Orlando. Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that, man. For some reason, I thought you were on the other side of the lake. Oh, cool.
Yeah, he bought the place in '81, so I was 2 years old at the time. 2 or 3 years old.
Dude, I had no idea you
Yeah.
were that close. Oh
yeah.
my God.
It's pretty cool.
So you're fishing locally, and then how did you get into bass fishing? Was it Isabella? It was your first initial start?
Yeah, that was the first start. I mean, I was 9 years old, and I'll remember this like it was yesterday. Just like you've got stories and stuff that you remember. But I was 9 years old, and I was fishing the bank from at Camp 9. So I walked down where the rocks were, a little bit to the left where the launch ramp is when the water's high.
Yeah.
And throwing a white spinner bait. My pops was there, my uncle was there, and it's like.
How old were you?
I was 9.
Okay.
That's when I caught my first bass, and it's funny. There was a game warden that came down and went and walked down and saw me catch it, and he went and checked my dad's license and my uncle's license after I'd brought the fish in and everything. So from then on, I was just like I was hooked. I mean, that one fish, I was like, I love trout, but I wanted to, branch out and do both trout and bass. Fish for like trout all the time, but then go out and do bass fishing to see, hone your skills.
Right.
And
You just like to fish.
I just love to fish. I mean, I'm fishing the bay now for spotties. And
Yeah.
I'll fish whatever. I'll fish a toilet if there's fish in it.
Right?
So
that's really cool. I mean, I have a similar story too. I'm sure if we were younger, we would have been good friends. All I wanted to do was fish, surf, skateboard, all that kind of stuff. All outdoor stuff for sure. So you are the 2013 One Bass U.S. Open champion. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Dude, what's that like?
Oh man,
Is that just sick?
Yeah, it's I appreciate that, man. It's you really it's hard to even talk because you're so. I was so excited to win that tournament, but it was also just so many years of following all the big fishermen that are in there. You got all the big guns, and it's like if you can just place in that tournament, and even if you get a check or not, if you can get in the top 50, that's an accomplishment in that tournament. And
how many people are in that thing?
Let's see. There's the year that I won, they were averaging about 120 to about 150, and now I think they're doing like 200 or 250, which is awesome. I mean, it's just they've got a lot of guys that are coming from all over to fish it, but it's hard. I mean, you can see it's hard to talk about even that lake because it's just such a great lake, but it's a love and hate relationship with fishermen. Lake Mead. Yeah,
Lake Mead. Okay.
So it's like you go out there and everybody loves the lake. I've never seen guys get more excited about catching a 2-pound bass because on Lake Mead a 2-pound bass is a good fish.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah. I mean, you get 8 to 10 pounds in the U.S. Open. Just about any year, you're going to be in the money. You're going to be in the top 10, top 15 for sure. But it's just a tough lake. It hones your skills. It's just the bass are not easy to catch, and I was able to put it together for 3 days and keep myself. I put myself where I could give myself a chance to get in a top 10. I just wanted to get a top 10, and I'd worked hard to do it, and the outcome was unbelievable. To get the first place was. With those guys too, I mean, with Clifford Perch and Brett Hite and all the guys, Aaron Martins, all those guys are in there. I mean, I love those guys because I followed them since I was 12 years old.
How cool is that?
I still got old clip outs, like clip out magazine cuttings of these guys that I still keep of certain tournaments that they won or what they used. I mean, that's how extreme, when you're passionate about it. I think you got to go the extra mile and do your extra homework and. Just there's so many good fishermen in California in general. I mean, it's just awesome.
How many competitions did you do before you did that one?
You mean just fished or?
Yeah, I mean, how many competitions? I mean, was there a lot of competitions that you were in before you actually?
Yeah, I fished the U.S. Open. My first year at U.S. Open was in 2000, so I was 20 at the time.
Okay.
And I didn't go in as a co-angler. I just said, you know what, I'm just going to jump in the pool, and it was like. I'd been fishing local tournaments, always supported One Bass and American Bass, and, they had Angler's Choice at the time. There was a lot of organizations in that early 2000s, and a lot of my friends and, guys that I've known forever were fishing those circuits. But I was like, you know what, you got to go out there and, let's jump in the pool and, see what you can do. And I went out there and it was about just basically just seeing what it was like to compete with those guys.
Right.
Guys you looked up to.
For sure.
I mean... So that tournament was my first big tournament, and then I started fishing, One Bass. Mike Kennedy was running the One Bass circuit. Bill Hutchinson, and now Billy Egan's done a great job, you know, running it. And, you know, it's amazing work that he does just to keep all of us. It's like he's the ringleader, you know, it's a big circus tent with all of us in it.
Was it cool? Were those guys, what were those guys like when you won? Did they come up to you and say congratulations type of a deal? Were they cool?
Yeah, it was super cool. A lot of the guys, I mean, all the guys, they're such great fishermen. You know, I got, you know, so much respect for all the guys that fish, but I was very, very, what put a smile on my face is on the third day, you know, the third day of the U.S. Open, especially if you're in that top 5 or top 3, you know, by then most guys are kind of knowing where you're at, where you're fishing. You know, the word kind of gets out, hey, the guy in the top 5 or the top 10, he's fishing in Overton, or he's fishing in, you know, Temple
really?
Bar or Greg's Basin. Well, I happen to be in Greg's Basin, so it was really cool to have like a half a dozen guys that are really good guys that they basically said, hey, you know, Rusty, we know you're on fish, and I'm talking to these guys pretty close to me, you know, and I was on a certain pattern. I was fishing a couple grass beds and a couple of points that had a lot of fish on it, and they said, hey, man, you know, we're, you know, we know you got an opportunity to win this thing, so we'll make sure we give you your space and make sure no one's going to come up on you, you know. So that was cool. And these guys in the competition, these guys are fishing in the tournament, that they have a chance to get a good check. Maybe they weren't in the you know, in the contention, but to have that, I thought was really cool. And I had guys literally that were just they were making sure that, you know, guys, because guys roll up on guys, and it's like it's part of the sport. You can either love it or hate it, you know. But it's like guys will come up, and some of the guys that are down in, like, you know, maybe towards the bottom standings, they may have an opportunity to catch a couple fish and, you know, stumble upon something. So it's kind of cool when you got guys that were like, hey, you know, Rusty, go get him, man. You're in second place going into day 3. You know, go catch them. Do your work. You know, so.
That's cool. So,
but it's hard to hide on Lake Mead. You can't hide as big a lake it is.
Rusty's over at that cove.
Yeah, but it's like it goes with anybody. I mean, you once you put 3 days in, by the third day, there's a lot of areas beat up. There's a lot of water that maybe hasn't been hit. But the problem is you're trying to find new water is impossible. You're going to be fishing used water. It's just a matter of, it's all a timing thing. If you can roll up on a spot and there's some bait in there and they're feeding, you can hit them quick. If not, at noon, you could be going 1 or 2 fish and going, I need to catch 3 more. And it's
stressful.
It's so stressful. I
can imagine.
But it's fun.
I saw this one video of this one dude, this one competition, and this dude, he won it, and he called his wife, and he's all, honey, I did it. It was like a big check, you know, because it was like, you know, if he didn't win, it was like, you know, they didn't have any money, you know, so it was a big deal. So what are those competitions in the morning like? Is there like 100 boats on the water and everybody's like waiting for their turn to like take off type of a deal?
Yeah, they usually, most of the big tournaments, the U.S. Open, for example, is probably the best example, but, you know, they have a certain time where they want everybody on the water, and that can be from anywhere from 4:35 in the morning, you know, even 5:30. Most guys will get on about 4:35 if they're in the top 100 going out, and then they launch everybody. They usually do flights of maybe 25 boats, and those are about every 5 to 10 minutes, say. I mean, by the time they run through them, and then the other guys are waiting. So you stage, you know, you have a boat number. Let's say your number 67. Well, they're going to start and go from, like, you know, first boat out all the way down to, say, 200, and then the second day they'll flip-flop it. So the 200 boat will go out first, and then they'll go, the guy that's the first number boat, he'll go out last on the second day.
Oh, damn.
So it's just, it's an adrenaline rush, because, you know, they do, they'll get everybody out, and then, you know, they're not all blasting off at once. It's all, like I say, 20 to 25 boats, maybe even 30 boats at some flights, depends on how big it is. And then everybody gets out safely that way. So then you come in, you got a certain weigh-in time. Your weigh-in time may be 3:30. Mine might be 4 o'clock.
I see.
So
so you got to come in at a certain time.
For that flight. You know, there's usually 8 to 10 flights usually in a big tournament like that. So.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple questions about the tournament. Sure. That's cool. So the first day, so what number were you?
Boy, I don't even know what number. I know I think I was middle of the pack.
Okay.
So the first day.
So did you pre-fish and kind of know where you were going to go?
Yeah. I usually do 4 or 5 4 or 5 days of pre-fish before the
Oh,
tournament.
okay.
And then
Get it wired.
and I'd been fishing that area, Greg's Basin and Temple Bar, for the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And I had an opportunity. The one year I had some good fish, and they just, you lose a few, and you can't have that happen. I mean, you got to fish clean in that tournament. So, but I had a pretty good idea of the area on each year, on as long as the water level wasn't really dropping that far. At that time, they weren't pulling it like they're pulling it now. But I was able to kind of get a pattern and get a feel of the area. If the grass was going to be starting to grow maybe in 2009, and then 2011 was there more rocks out of the water that had stick-ups. Every year is a little different on Mead. I think right now you're trying to find a stick or a rock because there's a lot of sand out there because all the good structures out of the water with a drought.
So the first day you went right to your spot, right?
Went right to the spot and
Did you
got a
start
limit.
sticking fish?
Yeah, I got a limit by like 8 o'clock, and I got down there like at 7.
Wait, so you just went in after that?
No, I just ended up. You end up culling if you can cull the fish. You get your five in the live well.
Yep.
And then you just you
changing them
get
out?
your biggest fish. You take out your smallest one and throw it back.
Okay.
So I was fortunate enough. My co caught a little over 3 pounder
Oh, you're fishing with somebody.
with a co. Yeah, it's
Okay.
combined weight. So
it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So he was able to catch a 3, little over, like almost a 3.5. It was like 3 to 3.5 pounder, like the first fish of the day. And I'm going, that right there sets the whole tone. I mean, that fish is not going to be getting cold. That fish is going to the scales for sure. Because if you're throwing back a 3 pounder, your weight is really serious. But it wasn't going to happen. He says, oh, this one maybe I'll throw back. And it was his first time to Lake Mead. Super cool guy. And he's like, I go, no, you don't understand. That fish is probably worth $1,000 for you. And we're going to take that fish for a ride back to the scales. And then I ended up catching a good one, like a 2 pounder, and we caught a couple more good keepers. And then he caught another one. We had literally 10, almost 10 pounds, like at 8:30 in the morning. So that was a good,
Did you know you were looking good at that point?
I was looking good for the first day. I figured I was in the top 20 going in. I had about 10 pounds. That's usually a good tone setter.
So first day you were what?
First day after day 1, I was in 9th.
Okay. So yeah, you're sitting good then.
142 boats, I think exactly, was in the tournament. So I was sitting in the top 10 going into day 2, which I felt that was good, But then day 2 has always been. It's funny we're talking about the U.S. Open. Day 2 has always been kind of hindered me. It's kind of been the day that I don't know why
struggle.
It's more of a struggle day for me. I can sometimes stay kind of in the mix, but then there's times like day 2, you catch 3 fish, or I've had a couple of day 2s I think I've blanked over the years, and it's just been kind of that. If you make the wrong decision, you can't play catch up at Mead. You can't win the tournament on the first day, but you sure can lose it. So I felt that I had a good weight the first day. I was happy about going into day 2, saying if I can just get 8 or 9 pounds, not worry about 10 pounds because I had like 10, 17, whatever I had the first day. And then I'm saying, you know what, if I can get 8 or 9, 10 pounds the second day, then I'm going to give myself a chance to be right in the mix going into day 3.
So day 2, did you go the same spot?
Same spot on day 2, but the conditions were a little different. It was a little bit flatter. There wasn't much wind. The bait that was in the area, they weren't real active, so I had to kind of wait them out. Well, luckily, the bait started getting active around like 8 o'clock. I got down there about 6:30, I think it was. So I had my limit by 9:30 the second day. So it took me a little while to get the limit, but I had about, I don't know, 7.5 pounds or so. I didn't have a big limit, but I had a limit.
When you say bait, are you talking shad?
Shad, bluegill, small. There was little small bluegills with chartreuse tails that were swimming through these grass beds. And the shad were really, really like chubby, like little shad. They weren't really big. And I was able to match the hatch. I had a little square bill storm arashi that was called a hot shad, and that color matched the bluegill perfect. And I'd run that through the sticks on day 2 up shallow in Greg's Basin. And then I'd follow it up with a small 3/8 Proline spinnerbait, and the blades had to have been really tiny. They were like a little small willow leaf blades to mimic the fat part of the shad. So it just was a perfect match. It was a match to hatch tournament is what it was. And I was able to just get the right baits that I felt that could get the right bites.
Nice. So you came back on the second day with, you said 7 pounds?
No, I had 7.5 in the morning, and I made a gamble. I said, I got to get out of here. And I told my co, I said, we got to get out of here. And I go, we're going to stop in Temple Bar. and I pulled in Temple Bar between Jawbone and the Haystacks.
So is this like way far away from?
Pretty far.
So you guys are just hauling ass across.
Oh yeah, it's pretty
okay.
far. I mean, you're talking Colville to Greg's Basin is probably an hour run.
Oh, okay.
Going 65, 70 miles an hour.
Oh,
you know?
okay.
And it's a little shorter now because the lake's smaller. But Temple Bar is probably 45 minutes. I would say. So I went from Greg's to Temple Bar because I'm heading back to Colville, working my way back, and that was like 20-minute run from Greg's to whatever. And I pull in there and I caught a 392, almost a 4-pounder.
Oh yeah, that's gonna do it.
And on a small little salt and pepper worm, and I just freaking threw that thing out there and hooked up. I felt the mush, and I set the hook, and this thing jumped completely out of water, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I go, we need this fish. So once I put that in the well, took the small one out, we had 10, a little over 10, whatever it was. So 2 days in a row with 10 pounds, I'm feeling pretty good. I knew I was in the top 10. I figured I was in the top 10, but you're kind of doing the math, and you're just kind of like, but I'm not getting too excited about it because you got a lot of work to do.
Concentrate.
Well, third day is the big day,
Yeah.
so you're either going to keep steady or you're going to bomb, and you hope you just, I just want to catch a limit on day 3 was my goal.
Okay, so after the second day, you come in on to the dock, and then what do you guys do? Because you guys aren't going partying, because you got to be.
No.
You guys got to be hanging out, just.
Yeah.
Getting your stuff together, probably, right?
Right,
Is that
right.
what you do?
So we weigh in. We come to the weigh-in to drive through weigh-in. So got our fish, holding them in the bags. The bump takes, they get weighed in. So when I weighed my fish after the whole weigh-in was done, I had found out I was in second place. So the guys that were interviewing, they're interviewing the guys in the top 5. So they come up and they're interviewing me, and I was super excited, but I was also like, hey, tomorrow's going to be a different day. And usually on Lake Mead, you get that weather change, and it's always one of the days is going to be a little bit different. And that's sure enough on day 3.
Wind?
A little bit up in Greg's Basin, but more so rain. It started raining. Clouds were dark.
Okay.
I think it was real windy on day 2, but I had an earlier weigh-in on day 2. So I was able to get back into the scales and weigh in, and then towards the afternoon, they had the tarps and the tents were getting blown around where the scales were, because the guys that had the 435 weigh-ins were in the middle of that weather. The thunder showers, whatever kind of wind, So if you've ever been on Lake Mead, you can know it's brutal. When that wind comes up, it can be really bad.
So you head out there on the third day. It's you got storms and stuff. So what did you do? Did you change tactics, and what did you do?
I did. I picked up a topwater lure, which I've always loved topwater fishing.
Yeah.
And I picked up a couple of different ones. I picked up a little Rapala. They call it a skitter walk. It's a bone color. And then I was throwing a smaller, similar one with that. It had a little bit of chartreuse and white. Because when the sun comes out, I like the bone colors, and then when the clouds come up, you probably know, just like the chartreuse is a money bait. And we had a limit in the morning. Took a little longer on day 3. I had a limit by 10 o'clock, I think, something like that. And I said to myself, I'm leaving Greg's Basin at noon. I cannot stay because my weigh-in was like early. It was like 3, I think it was. So my co-angler, it was funny, this guy I think his name's Seth Huthausen. He's a really cool dude. He's a big hunter out of like Utah or something like that. And he's like 19 at the time. He says, hey, Rusty, man, we need to get you something to eat, man. You're looking a little pale looking, because I'm focused on fishing, you know how it is. We never eat. We never eat when we're out there. So he's like, this kid's awesome. He pulls a sandwich out and gives me a sandwich. I start chewing on that thing while I'm casting. And all of a sudden I look up at the sky, and it's like starting to like rain a little bit. And it's hot out, and the waves, a little bit of ripple started bowling into the bank where these grass beds were, and you could actually see the grass beds moving a little bit. And they were hard to tell where the grass beds were at because they were off structure, and I'd found them, in pre-fish. So anyways, long story short on that, I picked up my topwater lure, and I think the third cast I caught a 344. So I took my 1.226 or whatever was in there as my 5th fish, and let it go in the water and see you later, and replaced it with a 344. So my weight now is going up. And then I think a half an hour later, I caught a 289. So almost 3-pounder. So now I think we were 7.5 or something, or even 8. and we jumped almost like 3.5 pounds. I think it was crazy. So we had about almost 11 pounds after day 3. You know, when I weighed it was 1081, 1082.
So you had 3 over 10 pound days.
3 over 10 pound. I was the only guy to catch over 10 every day. So I was very fortunate on that. Yeah. And
that's awesome.
And it's, you know, it doesn't seem like much weight, you know, but you start looking on Lake Mead and it's like, there's not enough fish in that lake. That there's a lot of small ones, but there's just so much dead water, you know. And I think I was going to ask you on trout fishing is they say 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water.
Right.
Is that similar for trout too?
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, so that's how Lake Mead is. If you find that 10%, you're going to be, you know, you're going to be good. So, but it worked out. You know, that tournament, you just never know. And then I had, you know, each day I made that long run. So now I've got to say to myself, okay, it's a little breezy in Greg's Basin. I still got to get through the basin. The basin's the ugly part. You know, is it going to be nasty? The weather's bad, or is it going to be smooth sand? Well, of course, it was snotty. Not bad. I've seen it worse, but I was able to cut through and then, you know, check my fish, make sure the water level usually goes down in your live wells a little bit because of the pounding of the boat.
Okay.
So I stopped.
Got to keep those guys alive, huh?
Yeah, I stopped in the front of the narrows and slowed down. And my co-owner looked at me. He says, "What's wrong?" Because, you know, he's thinking, "Oh man, what's going on?" I said, "No, I'm just slowing down. I'm gonna make sure my pumps are running good, and I'm gonna pump my level back up to make sure I got enough water, so we're not just buzzing in and these fish are, you know, in like 4 inches of water." So but I was able to pump the water back up, recirculate everything. I put a little bit of ice in the live well, which is good to do, and keeps them a little bit cooler. And then from there, it's about a 20-minute run to Colville. So, and that was a smooth sailing one. So once I got back in to the Colville area, I knew I gave myself a chance. Hey, I've done is all I could do in this tournament, and I was pretty sure I had a top 10 finish just because of the last 2 days. But again, you never know. I mean, Clifford Perch he came out with 15 pounds on day 3.
Oh, okay.
He's a stud. I love Clifford. He's a good fisherman.
So the guy that you're fishing with, is he assigned to you? Is that how it works?
Like out of a hat, you know. They do a random draw, so they pair guys. It's at the partner pairing. They'll put 3 guys on a card, and it'll have the pro, and then I'll be with 3 different co-anglers.
Oh, I
so
see.
He could be from anywhere. Like I had one guy from NorCal, one guy from Utah, and I think the other guy was from Stockton.
Okay.
So
3 different guys.
3 different guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you can use their fish if you need to?
Well, it's combined weight. So the goal is, like me and you are fishing together, the goal is to catch 5 fish total.
Yeah.
And that's just perfect. I love that setup.
Yeah.
And that way we're working as a team for 8 hours to go out and catch our best 5 we can catch.
Right.
Which I love that. It's fun.
That's way cool.
Yeah.
So they have a bass and fly up. Have you heard of that?
Bass and fly?
It's called the Bass and Fly up in Discovery Bay area.
Okay.
And it's basically like the same kind of a deal, except it's all fly fishing. And so one year I was gonna go fish it. They were gonna set me up with a bass pro like yourself, and he didn't fly fish, so it was gonna be kind of a cool thing. You know, I'd fish with him, and he knew the delta and stuff, but you know he had to use a fly rod. It would have been cool. So we need to go fish that tournament, me and
Heck yeah, we'll do it, man.
That'd be awesome. That'd be so cool.
You just gotta show me a little fly fishing tricks.
Dude, it would be amazing.
And I'll put us to the bass.
That's right. So, so coming back in on the 3rd day, you have a good idea that you're going to win the tournament.
But not win it. I felt that I was going to be in the top 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're feeling good.
I'm feeling good.
Feeling good.
You never know. You never think you've won at Lake Mead.
Okay. So I want to get to the feeling of and how did they announce it? When everybody comes in and then they do have a big area where they're going to announce the winner, and you're just and you get
what they do is they did a pretty cool feature. What they did was they did the top 10 guys. So the top 10 guys we were the last guys to weigh in. Okay. So from 10th down to 1st, which was leading after day 2. I was in 2nd place. Brett Height was in 1st, and then Clifford was in, I don't know what place he was in. He was in the mix with, guys like Gary Dobbins. I know I'm naming all these guys right now. They're just great fishermen. Great fishermen, yeah. But Little Joe Uribe, great fisherman. He was like 6th or 7th, I think, going into day 3. So they ended up actually having everybody weigh in, the whole 130 boats or 128 boats, whatever. And then they had us sitting at the dock with our boats in the water, live wells were running, and then once everybody weighed in, then they had us all get out one by one and drive up and make it into a big
cool.
stage, which was cool.
Right on.
I'm glad Billy did it that way.
Was there a bunch of people there too?
Oh, there's a lot of people.
Oh,
yeah,
sweet.
because everybody was on. They did that. I think they did the Costa Live. You
Oh,
know,
nice.
So that's cool. They do Costa glasses, man. I know you wear them. You
Yeah,
love
yeah.
them, man. They're great. But they ended up doing it. So they weighed in 10th place first, 9th, you know, and then work your way down to the guys that were in first, second, and third, and pretty intense. You know, I like I said, I felt that I had a good chance of getting in the top 10, but I didn't know I had it won. You know, I mean, you don't know, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like with those guys, I was nervous. I mean, it's like funny that some of the guys said I was pacing a little bit on the stage because, you know, your adrenaline's running, you know, you're trying to keep as calm as you can, but you're
sure.
saying to yourself, hey, you know, like Billy told me, hey, you put yourself in a position to be here right now.
Yeah.
And you know, you do your best you can. But yeah, it was pretty intense, you know. And they just went from all the weights down, and then when I weighed my fish, I was able to bump Clifford Perch off the hot seat, and then that alone was like
a big deal.
worth the whole tournament. It's
Yeah.
like Clifford Perch has won I think he's won 3 or 4 U.S. Opens, 3 for sure, and I was like, Clifford, man, it's like you know, just an honor to have him right in front of you.
Yeah.
And then when I took the hot seat, there was only one more boat to weigh in, and that was Brett Hite. And Brett Hite, I've known him forever. He's a great fisherman. That guy's doing well on the, you know, the MLF Tour and Elite Series. He's just been a guy I've always looked up to, especially in the Colorado River. He's always done well, you know. So I think he needed like 10.5 pounds, and then when the scale hit 904, I was just like,
What did you do?
I was just calm, stunned. I'm not even calm, but I didn't even. It's just like holy mackerel! Like, and when they announced that Nick, you won the U.S. Open, I'm going, wow,
Dude, it's
you know,
insane.
you don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
You know, but it'd been my 11th one that I've been at, so it's like I felt that being a little bit of a veteran
Yeah.
in it kind of kept my nerves. I was actually pretty calm by the dock at 6 a.m. on the third day, you know, with my co-angler. I just says, hey, let's just go out and have fun and go do this. I mean,
Nice.
you know, you can't get stressed. I figured if I could go out and do my game and catch a limit and have fun and not get too wrapped up on the stress part, we'll have a pretty good chance of doing well.
It's a good way to look at it.
You know, you got to keep calm. You can't, you know, because that's you don't want to get the yips on the last day of a golf tournament or a freaking fishing tournament or whatever.
Right.
You know?
So they announce it, and then they like hand you like a big money check too, or is
No, they do the awards. Yeah, everybody
Okay.
had to get back to I think it's the Railhead room or the Boulder room, whatever it is at Boulder Station. So, you know, I had to get back. They had a certain time. I think the thing started at 8 o'clock. So, and it was like 6 or something or 7, whatever time it was. And then we get back. So I was able to get back to my hotel, you know, take a shower, get
I see.
myself, you know, I know the guys pretty well at Sunset Station. So I literally just parked my boat into the parking structure. I know the security guys well, and they basically just took care of the boat because I didn't have time to like put everything away.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally had to haul butt all the way from Colville to Sunset Station, and then I had to drive from there to the Boulder Station, which is like 7 miles away across town, where the headquarters is.
Okay.
So
And
I had to
that's-
hustle.
So then you go there.
So you go there, and then they do, you know, the sponsor stuff, and Billy
cool.
gets up and does all the, you know, talking about the tournament and everything, and then they start from, you know, the what is it, I think they paid 40 spots or something like that, so 30 or 40 spots, so they start from there, and then they do the co-anglers, and then they work your way down. So, you know, you're gonna be there a while. I think it was about 10 o'clock when they got down to the top 5 guys, and then it was so cool just to see all the guys getting their awards, and then
Yeah.
and then they had me come up when they called me up, and you know, you're the last person standing there. It's pretty cool.
That's a trip,
and,
man.
Yeah, it was pretty neat, man. It was pretty cool. The thing I really loved about it though, and it's like, and you know, being able to talk with Aaron Martins, because I've known Aaron, you know, pretty well. You know, I don't know him that great, but we've seen each other a lot and talked, and he always asked me about my guide service, but I just wish him. I hope, you know, he gets better. You know, I know he's going through a lot right now, and health-wise, so he's just, I consider him as like the god of bass fishing, so it was neat to have him talking to me before,
That's
a
awesome.
guy that's won the thing 3 times, and he's just standing there. We're just sitting there talking in the, the bar area before they announced me to come up, and I'm just like, wow, Aaron Martens, we're just talking, and he was just really cool. He says, hey man, congrats, and he said, I'm proud of you, and I was like, dang man, that's pretty cool.
That is
So
really
that
cool.
actually probably made my tournament the whole deal, is just to be able, and then now what he's going through. Like, he's a strong guy. He's gonna get through this and feel better. And guys always ask me, hey, if you had to pick one guy to go into a tournament with. I mean, there's a lot of good fishermen, but Aaron Martens is not a bad choice to take.
He's a badass, huh?
Yeah, he's really cool. So.
All right, so you win the thing, and so then are like sponsors like knocking on your door and stuff like that? How's that go down?
I picked up, my guide service business probably went up 40%.
Right on.
So that was cool.
Uh-huh.
But I picked up a few sponsors, from it. And it was, a lot of it was just the sponsors that I had.
Yeah.
I've always been big, on loyalty and having the sponsors and keeping them. And we've been through a lot, over the years, just with, we had that big economy thing in 06, 07, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I picked up a few that were really good sponsors, and these ones were like, hey man, you've been with us for a long time, and we've had each other's back, and they were able to step up and,
Sweet.
definitely be cool. It was cool about getting that little bit of extra
Yeah.
after the thing was done. But, I've always said about bass fishing, or even any kind of fishing, it's never about the money. We do it because we love it. I mean,
sure.
even if we weren't getting paid, I've never been about that. I love it so much that we would just do it because we love it. I mean, I know you could probably agree with that too.
Absolutely. I haven't worked in 20 years.
It's about me too. We don't know what work is. No, but it was cool, man. It was fun to be able to just be part of that whole experience,
Right on.
But then you lick your wounds. Like, mead's snooty because it's like you'll go there and then you won't. I've had tournaments where you just you catch 2 or 3 fish in the whole tournament. It's like you get a good wake up call, which is actually good for a fisherman because it keeps you humble.
Yeah.
I mean,
Are you competing still?
this year I probably will get back. The last couple of years I haven't been on any mini tournaments, if any, a few team tournaments. So I'm just trying to inching my way back in. I'm going to be getting on the circuit next year, 2022. I figured, get ready to get back on a nice circuit, fish the Cal Open, the Arizona Open, and the U.S. Open. So I'm excited about fishing that, and a few team tournaments. I like fishing a few up here at Isabella. And
Have you fished any here lately?
yeah, we fished a few.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
I fished that circuit a little bit with my pops.
What's it called?
It's just American Bass.
Oh, yeah.
ABA. So.
There's a local guy here named John Van Lesser. Do you know him?
Yeah. Van Ressler?
Van Ressler, yeah.
He's a super cool guy.
Yeah, he's been doing well.
Yeah, he
on
does well.
on the Isabella.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
What's up, John? I'm sure he'll listen to
Yeah,
this.
what's up, John?
So, a tournament angler, can they survive off their sponsors and like just have a living doing that? I mean, is that something that a lot of people are doing? A lot of pro anglers are doing? Is it surviving off of that, or they have day gigs?
You can. I mean, you've got to. I mean, you know how social media is and stuff. You've got to really promote yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to do a lot of things to kind of get that rolling. Keeping the sponsors, doing
For sure.
What you can for sponsors and for obviously companies that are supporting you. There's guys that are making a living doing it. There's a list of guys that are up in the MLF Tour and the the elites or the FLW. They're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's guys that are they're making a good amount of money on tournaments, but they've also got contracting jobs, or they're construction workers, or they do a combination. So it's I guess it just depends where you live, where you're at, how many events you're fishing. If you're fishing a lot of events and you're doing a lot of charity work and stuff like that, I think doing that kind of work, you're going to get a little bit more longevity out of sponsors, because then they see the support that you're doing,
Right.
And then added to all the social media stuff is huge for sponsors. They get a lot of stuff from that. And I think it's just, you just got to keep doing it, keep grinding it. There's a lot of people out there, and there's so many great fishermen that everybody's trying to promote themselves and do a great job at doing that. And there's little door openings that if you get that opportunity, I think anybody should take advantage and support that door opening.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You guys have different boats. There's a lot of different boats out there. What do you have?
I run a Ranger Z521.
You guys a lot of you guys have the Rangers, huh? Are those like the the best, or what's up?
I like the Ranger. You know, I've always ran a Ranger. I like the stability of the boat. You know, it's not the fastest boat, but I like that it's real stable. You know, it's real safe for me. It works out great, you know, for my clients, and I just like the big platform. But you know, Ranger's always been kind of the boat I've liked. There's a lot of good boats out there, though. I mean, there's a lot of boats that are starting to new boat companies, and you know, boats that are, you know, 21 foot, 22 foot. The aluminum market's really going good too. Ranger's got a good aluminum, and I know there's Bass Tracker and there's different ones, but I've always, you know, it's kind of run what you brung. I've always loved Ranger.
Cool, man. What's let's talk bass, because I got a bunch of questions that I want to talk to you
Sure.
about. Are you cool with that?
Absolutely, bud.
Let's talk more bass,
Fun.
because that's my favorite too. So, what do you think that makes bass so popular?
I think what makes bass a largemouth bass, we'll just use that because that's pretty much what everybody loves. I just think that it's just the game fish that you never can figure out. They look funny actually when you look at them. You know, they do. They actually, that's
Right.
kind of they look funny. They have like their, you know, when their mouth is closed and their eyeballs are looking at you, it's almost like I don't even know how you can explain it. They have just a weird face, but then when you open their mouth and you're holding them, they're beautiful. Or if they open their mouth to eat a shad, they look cool. But I just think that they're, you know, people say fish aren't smart, and you know, there's biologists, obviously they know more about it than I do, but I just feel like they're real unpredictable.
For sure, huh?
Yeah,
Like, where the hell did they go?
Yeah, exactly. They have little attitudes on them, but
Right.
they're I think what makes, to answer your question, I think what makes them such an attractive fish to target is because no one has them mastered. Like there's
Okay.
always, you know, there's guys that have got it pretty close mastered. There's quite a few guys that have done very well in bass fishing. I'm not just talking tournament guys. I'm talking, you know, trophy hunters and guys that have done that. But I just think because they're not a guarantee to catch, and they throw curveballs and they change it up on you. I think that's what makes them, you know, and they're pretty. I think a lot of guys like the colors of them, and they're just so powerful. They, with all that combination, they're like, man, why do these fish do this to us? You know, but then when we catch them, we're like, yeah, we think we're the man. We think we're the man. Then all of a sudden, then they throw a curveball at us. They're like, oh man, maybe we should pick up a golf club.
So for everybody out there, you know, that doesn't know, what kind of bass do we have in Southern California that you target?
Well, most of the lakes, I mean, Isabella's, well, a lot of people know Isabella's my favorite lake.
Oh, is it?
It is my favorite lake. The reason why it is...
I've been seeing you getting some big bass out of there lately, dude.
Catch a few once in a while.
Jeez,
man. But in California, I think because of they're Florida bass, the F1 hybrids, a lot of them are the old school fish that were stocked in Castaic, Isabella, Casitas. Those are the old, some of the lakes have still got some of the old genes from those fish.
The Florida strain?
The Florida strain, yeah.
Okay.
Now, some of the lakes have northern strain bass, which is not as big as the Florida strain. They don't grow as big, but they're very hardy, and they survive really well in the wintertime. They're easier to catch in the winter because the Florida bass typically hibernate. Like on this lake, you know, you got water temp 46, 47 degrees in the heart of winter. Those bass, they're not moving. I mean, you got to literally hit them on the head with a jigging spoon or a jigging pig or a drop shot, and they don't even eat that stuff.
So the ones in Isabella are Florida strain.
Yeah, those are the original. Well, not the originals, because those ones are not around anymore. But the genes from those original stock are still in this lake.
Okay.
And they're originally Florida strain, stocked in the 70s. I want to say they put them in 60s, 70s.
They never put smallmouth in the lake, or did they?
Not that I know of, but we've caught some good smallmouth out of there.
No way.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
really?
I haven't caught a bunch. Dick Trask, you probably know that name.
Yeah.
Dick Trask caught a 5-pounder, I think a 4.5, 5-pounder.
In Isabella?
In Isabella. My buddy Jay Rich in Bakersfield, he's a super cool guy. He caught like a 566, I think it was. Smallmouth.
Is this recent, or is this
This
a
has
while?
been a few years ago. I think it was 07, 08.
No
there was
way.
a run there where guys were getting about maybe 10 or 12 a year, go to the regulars. I haven't seen any lately because the lake's been so low, but I think some of them have come in from the river. You know, or maybe guys caught them in the river and took them up to the lake, which that's a no-no. But,
Yeah,
but you know, it's all part of the whole river lake system.
Correct.
And then they grow. You know, a smallmouth, you put, you know, if they, I don't know how many smallmouth are in the lake, but you don't need many, and then they reproduce. They're big.
So Florida strain, and then we got smallmouth. What else? Any other?
There's kokanee in here. They put.
No, I mean bass.
Oh, bass.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other?
No, not spots. You know.
Yeah.
They didn't put any spotted bass in here. I know Kauai and those lakes have spots, but just smallmouth, largemouth, but pretty much mostly largemouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Okay. That's what I thought. I didn't know that they were catching smallmouth in Isabella. That's interesting.
There's still a few in there, I would imagine. If this lake comes up, you find them usually by the river. So anything from like free air up to the cemetery where the river comes in with the current, that's where you find them. You usually catch them on a spinnerbait too for all the guys out there.
Oh, cool, man. So what's your favorite? Is it smallmouth or largemouth?
Largemouth. I mean, I love spots too. I mean, I fish a lot of the spotted bass lakes like New Maloney's and Don Pedro and Berryessa. I love those places. But I love Isabella's largemouth. I mean, they're always going to be because they're tough to catch. You know.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about them for a second. In Isabella, you know, we got this issue where they're constantly lowering the water, raising it up. It's like super low right now. In fact, I think it's so low it's almost what, to Rocky Point. It's like getting up close to that. You think?
Yeah, it's about 12 or 13 feet on the second tiers of trees off Rocky Point, which that should be 27 to 35 feet, and we're only looking at like 13, 14 feet.
So the deepest part of the lake is by the dam.
Yeah,
you think?
60 feet maybe.
And then, so from what I hear, they're going to fill that sucker up.
Well, I hope.
Have you heard that?
No.
Oh, one of the engineers that works at the dam was saying that, you know, I think they got maybe a year or a couple of years left to
get the dam completed.
Completed or
That's
something,
correct,
and they're going to like start filling the thing up, man.
Wow.
That'll be a trip, huh?
That'll be a trip.
Yeah.
So they probably want to test the dam is what they're probably going to do.
So how does that affect the bass in Isabella when they're doing that, like the raising the water up and lowering the water? Does that hurt the bass population?
The bass here have adjusted to that because throughout the years since the 80s, since I've been around, they've always been, we call it the dropping as a bathtub, you know, or Isabella's always dropping like a bathtub. But then when the water comes in, it comes in quick, which the flows upriver get really high.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much. You know, you get those flows super high. This lake can come up quick.
Yeah.
So the bass have to be kind of, I don't know if they anticipate it, but I feel that the bass bite better, in my opinion, on the dropping water than the raising water.
Okay.
I know some guys wouldn't agree with that, but when it starts dropping, the fish have already got their locations that they've been on. You know, they're underneath a tree, or they're up in the flume, or somewhere in the lake, you know, hiding on Rocky Point. Well, as the water drops slowly and they start losing those areas, they've already got another area that they've already mapped out that they can nestle in. Right now it's ridiculous because the lake's going down so fast. The fish have I'm surprised the fishing's as good as it is because they're running for their lives. The lakes are dropping so fast. Castaic, I just heard, is dropping a foot a day.
Oh, man.
And Isabella's got to be dropping at least 6 inches a day.
Yeah.
And then you got evaporation too.
Right.
But anyways, so the bass I think on the dropping water, as long as they're not pulling it real fast, the bass still bite really good because they have enough water over their heads until, you know, they lose their haunts, so to speak. So I like Isabella when it's dropping, but I don't like it when it's dropping when the lake's already low.
Right.
we all like it when the lake's high and then it starts dropping.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like, it's almost like clockwork too. Like in the spring, you'll find a lot of those fish over by Camp 9, you know, right? Hanging out over there, top water.
Bay, Kissack's Cove, Brown's Cove, you know, Lime Dyke, when the water's super high. But Camp 9's probably one of the best areas because you can catch them on all, like you just said, top water, and you got a lot of flats and shrubs and rocks. And
you ever see or catch a bass with a crappie in its mouth?
I have.
On Isabella?
Yeah.
Like stuck?
Not stuck, but a good sized crappie, probably a 10-inch crappie.
Yeah.
You know, where the tails, you know, you can see like from the tail part where the body starts, you can see the colors and stuff. Yeah.
So I went to I don't know if I've told you this, but I went to Lake Bacharach. Have you heard of that place?
yeah, in Mexico.
So we went there in April, and I went with some other fly fishing dudes. And these bass had tilapia stuck in there.
Oh, wow.
And so we'd be driving along, and there'd be a bass just floating, and we'd go over to it and actually save its life by taking the tilapia.
Because he was choking on it.
Choking on it, yeah.
So you helped him out.
Yeah, helped him, both of them out.
Yeah. And the tilapia went too? Swam away
Totally,
too?
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, talk about gluttons. But that place is pretty cool. I'd love to go there with you, man.
Yeah, that'd
You
be
fish
fun.
your stuff.
Yeah.
And,
I'd love to get out here with you. We can make this our little mini
It'd be
back rack, you know.
Dude, I don't know this lake. I mean, I fished it. I'm usually doing the fly fishing for carp thing, you know, and the crappie, but the bass thing is kind of a mystery to me. So it'd be fun.
Isabella is one of the best lakes. I mean, a lot of guys that fish it, they know it's kind of a, you know, the lake's a lot out of the way for everybody. It's got the wind. The wind's some of the
gnarly,
worst,
yeah.
some of the worst wind in probably the world. You know,
I've been
but
stuck out there.
yeah. But when the
Have you?
conditions, yeah.
Yeah.
When the conditions are right, though, Isabella's a special place, and I think a lot of the guys like ourselves that live up here, and
Yeah.
you know, we know there's some nice fish in this lake, and it's nice that we have the river to have that too, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about water temps and the bass? So what's their favorite? Like on Isabella, is it like the 70-degree mark or 65?
63 to 70. I think they like closer to 70 here than anything because it's kind of like all the game fish are kind of really active, even trout, you know, in the lake
Right.
at 70s, good temp for them. You know, everybody's kind of moving around and, you know, the 60s are good for trout, obviously, but the bass are going to feed on the trout. So I think I think the bass at 70 degrees can run down more trout and be more aggressive. And then also have a plentiful, what am I trying to say, the population of crawdads and bluegill, because everything comes out at 70 degrees pretty much. So I like fishing 65 to 70 on this lake.
Okay, and so when it's getting around that, does it ever get higher than that, like push into the 80s
Oh
and,
yeah,
and
we're
then
80,
slow down?
We're 81 right now, 82.
Are they
And
slowing down at all?
They're hitting top water pretty good in the morning.
Oh, man.
And
Like
then-
first light?
First light, but it's only good for about an hour, and
Yeah.
then they start slowing down. They start getting in whatever deep water they can get into,
Uh-huh.
and then you got to throw a drop shot, a Texas rigworm. I like to fish a lot of purple worms in this lake, especially in the hot time of the year. It seems like purple gets bit really good, and then
How big? How big are the purple worms?
anywhere from 4.5 to 10 inch.
Oh,
But I
okay.
usually throw a lot of the 7-inch robo worms, 6-inch robo worms on a drop shot, and I like to just use that. That color seems to really show up in the hot, bright sun, and the bass like it. I mean,
I've heard
there's-
that, yeah.
There's other
Purple.
colors, but purple is my favorite color.
What about pink? You ever use pink?
Like the Morning Dawn color pink is good from Robo. I like that one. That one works good here in the cold months,
does it?
spring months. Yeah. So different lakes.
Okay, so going down. So now it's coming down. The temperature is coming down to 50 degrees. Now what are they doing?
So they're going to be on a crawdad bite come Halloween, 1st of November.
Oh, yeah?
These fish will be eating crawdads, and you'll catch them on deep dive and crankbaits. Some of my DT Rapalas and the red craw are really good. Crawdads are kind of right now kind of a lipstick red with a little bit of black. And then once they get into the more fall, they turn more kind of brownish orange. And then they'll kind of get into kind of a reddish color towards the heart of winter. But the crawdad bite will be really good. So I know guys, there's still some guys that'll throw live crawdads out here, the old timers. But I like to fish the crawdad cranks. I like to fish a jig. Those are all good in the 1st of November, middle of October. It depends when it cools down. I think last year it didn't cool down until
Right.
like Halloween. You
So
know?
when they're at 50-degree water temps, are they how deep will they go?
On a normal lake, if this lake's high or semi-high, they'll be down in about 25 to 45.
Okay.
Off Rocky Point, off Engineers Point. But since we don't have that depth, the fish can't go anywhere. They're going to be shallow. So you just got to. I mean, they're not going to be feeding as much, but it's going to be a little easier to get them. But the bigger fish are going to suspend out in the trees. Those are going to be the ones that aren't going to get caught very often. Maybe a jig and spoon or maybe a swim bait. But when the water temp gets down to 50, you don't have a lot of options. You know, you're trying to keep yourself warm too, because the wind's probably going to blow.
So so it comes around November, December. Are you not fishing here?
I'll fish this lake until the week before Christmas.
Okay,
And then
sounds right.
And then I won't fish this place again until probably March 1st.
And then where do you go?
I'll stay on Diamond Valley, San Vicente. I'll stay in San Diego a lot because San Diego's weather stays pretty consistent.
Okay.
So I'll fish San V, El Cap. Hodges isn't open until February. So my months for my guiding are pretty much November, December, January, February are a combination of a little bit up this way, but mostly San Diego, Diamond Valley, and those lakes because they don't get that cold.
Yeah.
Not like these mountain lakes do. Pyramid's pretty cold too.
Is
in the
it?
winter. Yeah.
What about stripers? You ever do striper stuff? Or?
Stripers, if I run across them, I will.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're guiding,
fun,
it's
yeah.
like they're fun. You know,
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of stripers are 1.5 to 3 pounders, schoolie type stripers. Clients love them. I love them too. They're fun to catch.
For sure.
So we'll stumble upon a few, and then they're good fish tacos too.
Right.
Taking them home.
What's your favorite technique?
My favorite technique. God, I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean,
Yeah.
I like.
The top water.
I like the top water. I love the jig fish.
Yeah,
jig
yeah.
fish. I mean, there's so many Texas rig
It
worm,
is, huh?
robo worm, but
Yeah.
I like throwing a shad wrap, a little Rapala shad wrap, or a countdown, small little minnow type, because those things get bit year round. You can always catch them even if it's cold. Rapala's been a long sponsor of mine, so it's like they make, in my opinion, some of the finest crankbaits because they're real realistic, that swimming action, and I think everybody's throwing a Rapala once or twice in their life. But I like throwing a shad wrap on a spinning rod. It's kind of cool for a steak and a little bit up here and Pyramid and Lake Mead, different places. But if I'm up here in the wintertime and I'm going for big fish, I have 2 rods. I'll throw a big swim bait like a Huddleston or an MC swim bait.
You ever throw those big trout?
Yeah, the trout Huddlestons,
oh,
yeah,
those
the
are
Huddlestons,
okay.
or the MC swim bait,
Right,
or I'll just
must
put
be a
I'll put a
blast.
big jig on, you know, a brown jig or a black jig, and put a big craw or a piece of pork on it, Uncle Josh, and go after it. You know,
Nice.
you may not get many bites, but the ones you get are going to be donkeys.
So low pressure, high pressure moon phase.
That's a great
I'm just
question.
picking your brain,
No,
bro. It's
hey,
all-
guy, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is what it's about. That's a great question right
Yeah,
there. I
yeah.
get that here and there, but I know that you're big on the moon too. I don't like the full moon. That's the first thing I'm going to say about that.
Right.
Is I don't like the full moon. Now, the full moon actually surprised me the last month up
Right,
here because
right.
the fishing's been so good that the fishing was decent. But I like fishing.
What do you think it is about that damn full moon?
Well, I can tell you what it is.
What
It's,
is
the fish are eating
They're
at night.
grubbing,
They're
huh?
grubbing all night long because they have that light. It's like somebody putting a flashlight on your steak. I mean,
Yeah.
it's right there. You can
Right.
see it, you know. And especially if you're in the dark, you're not going to eat a steak in the dark. But if I put a flashlight up, you're going to be like, yeah, I can get to it. But those fish just eat all night long. And then when the daylight comes out,
Just
they just don't want to eat. And I'm sure you have that happen in the trout, right?
Totally.
And it's
Absolutely.
just like
Yeah.
you can make the perfect presentation.
Yeah.
You can have the perfect fly. You
Right.
can have the perfect setup, and they just don't want to eat.
where the hell are they?
I know, and they're there. That's the thing is they're there.
Yeah.
They just don't want to eat.
So okay, what about the pressure and the low and high pressure for you?
The high pressure is okay. It's the barometric pressure. I don't think that's as hurtful as the moon. Ideal moon's a quarter or a half moon. Even the no moon sometimes can be a little tough because maybe the fish it's a little bit dark for them, and they don't see the lures as well because some of the dirty water lakes, you know, the fish are kind of be going through like maybe vibrations. They're going to be feeling for vibrations instead of sight because the bass don't really have good sight. They never have. They just do all on their smell and their the vibration. You know, their peripheral vision's decent, but quarter moon or half moon I like. Those are like right now I think we're at like a quarter, like a little sliver.
Are you guiding tomorrow?
No, I'm taking a couple of days off.
Oh, good for
actually.
you, man. You're gonna go fishing, huh?
I'm just gonna relax here. I'm actually gonna sleep in is what I'm gonna do.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, I don't take many days off, but it's nice just to relax up here, and this is my area up here. I like to just relax.
I can't believe that you live on Burlando or your dad has a
Yeah.
house there, and I never knew that. I
Yeah,
can't
just
believe
right
that.
up Orlando since '81, man.
Wow.
So
Good trip.
yeah,
So let's talk about your guiding.
yeah.
So when did you start guiding?
I started guiding. I was doing it part time in, I think it was 2004, 2005. I started doing. I was working at Budweiser, kind of as a college job or summer job, and then
What did you do there?
I was actually driving a truck, and and I did some merchandising, which was cool. So
I did too. I did too for Coca-Cola.
Oh, there you go. So
back in the day,
that keeps you in shape. Keeps both of us in shape.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I did that, but I was fishing all the time too on the weekends, and then I started, just taking out some friends, and I kind of started with friends. I started taking them out, and then I started taking some sponsors out, and I'm like, this is a pretty cool deal. I'm going out and putting them on fish and trying to get them on certain lakes, and then I was like,
this fits.
It kind of fits. But I started talking to some of the other guides. There's guys that have been doing it a long time at, like Troy Folkstead, and there was like a bunch of guys that were fishing, all these different guides that were fishing, years and years, and good friends of mine too. And it's like I started talking to them, and Don Avino, I know him very well, and we all know Don, and he was guiding.
Where's he guiding at?
He was guiding. He's doing Lowrance stuff now. He does like on the water Lowrance things.
Oh, okay.
So he was doing that, and then I'm trying to think. His son, I think, was guiding Gene, and he kind of helped me out kind of with Pyramid and Castaic, and I was like, this is pretty cool. And I really didn't know I wanted to do it, but I wanted to, I want to try this, and if I can make a couple bucks doing it, why not?
Right.
So I started doing that, and I guess it just started kind of accumulating a little bit, and I started picking up clients, and people wanted to go fishing, and I was working at Turner's at the time, so Turner's was big, when I was working there, and then started going into all the places, and then before you know it, you're around all the stores. Anglers Marine, I love that store. I'm in there all the time. So Rick and Kyle and all the guys there, they're super great, and you've got it's like a candy store. So people are coming in, and I had my cards, and pretty soon you're like, man, this is pretty cool. We can go out and take people out, and I started doing it, and then people started calling me, and they wanted to do some guide trips, and had my own pamphlets and cards and prices, and it's cool.
How many days do you guide now? Like
I'm pretty much right now, I've been since the spring, I'm about 5 days a week.
Oh, awesome.
So it's cool.
That's
I like taking the weekends off if I can, but I get guys that want to go the weekends, and I think the weekends are cool too if they can get out. So I try to take maybe Tuesday off and say Sundays if I'm not guiding, if I'm guiding on a Saturday, but usually it's Monday through Friday, and then I can have the weekends off to relax. And
good for you, man.
So you got to have a break, I guess, a little bit.
So do you take out beginners too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love taking out kids and beginners. And it's great.
How do you get them on a spinning rod and just have them throw crankbaits and stuff, or? Yeah. Is that what you do?
Yeah, you kind of see, you kind of ask them. I'll talk to them before and say, hey, if you guys have, gone out and done trout fishing or bass fishing or something, like, what are you comfortable with? Mm-hmm. And if they say a spinning rod, I'm assuming maybe a spinning rod, but again, some people have thrown, push buttons. They've thrown bait casters for steelhead or walleye, whatever. But I'll say, hey, spinning rod, and then I'll usually set them up with like a little Shad Rap or Opala, see if they can, work those, and I teach them how to throw those, and then we'll throw like a Senko or a drop shot. The drop shot's always a good, bait. You can always catch a few fish on it. So, but I like to do a lot of lure fishing with all my clients, from the beginners to guys that fish a lot of big tournaments. I love to throw the crankbaits, spinner baits, because that's stuff that I think more people are not familiar with, out here, because California is more of a finessing game, finesse fishing, clear water, light line, but there's a lot of good opportunities for big crankbaits, spinner baits, stuff like that. And I think with people that are learning how to fish, I think just getting the casting down and the presentation down is half the battle. It makes them a better fisherman when they slow down.
What's your favorite type of client?
My favorite type of client is a client that's that has fun, that goes out there and
exactly.
And loves just being out there. We ultimately, as a guide, and this, we definitely want to put them on fish, which that's a main focus. But I love a client that's out there and that appreciates the nature, appreciates having fun. Maybe he's been working a lot and he just wants to get away from his job and just out there and enjoying the fresh air, because that right there, he's already got a positive attitude, and whatever happens, and they're excited for that. So that's kind of it's awesome. My guys.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Do you have like a guide day that you remember was just like the most epic you could ever imagine? In the years that you've been guiding, that one that stands out?
There's a lot of them, but I'm trying to think. There's There's a lot of great memories. It's hard to name them too, because there's been a lot of lakes, a lot of from Diamond Valley to here to Hodges.
Has there been what's like the biggest fish that one of your clients has ever caught? Like, have you just been like, oh my god, I've never even caught one of those?
Yeah, the biggest bass my clients ever caught. I had a guy catch a 12-pounder, which was big
on Isabella.
One close to 12 on Isabella, but this one that he caught was at Hodges. And then I've had guys catch.
Probably more stoked than he was.
Well, but you know, they get a big fish. They're in shock. You know, it's almost like you have to shake them a little bit because they are in shock.
Check this thing out.
Right.
Yeah, it's
but
crazy.
Diamond Valley, a lot of big fish. I mean, I think the biggest fish, probably 12 pounds that I've had a client catch, which is a huge bass. A lot of 10s, a lot of 9s, a lot of guys with personal best, which that's something I've kind of, you know, over the years, you know, makes me smile.
Sure.
It's not an easy feat, but guys come out and, you know, I think maybe even trout fishing, you may get this. Hey, guys
sure.
coming from play. Hey man, is there any way I can get a 7-pound brown or a 6-pound brown? It's like, I get that. Guys, hey, they want to come out and catch a 10-pound bass. Well, 10-pound bass don't grow on trees.
Yeah. It's a little hard.
I wish they did.
Yeah, right.
But I've been fortunate to get guys on a lot of big fish over the years, and I think that's something that's a lot of that goes with the knot tying and the line I use. I like Maxima. I'm going to say it because it's like my favorite thing in fishing is the line. And I think the Maxima for myself, there's a lot of great lines out there, a lot of great braids, lines, fluorocarbons. But for me, that I've noticed in 20 years of doing this, the Maxima monofilament has that really strong abrasion resistance, and it's like just strong line from their 5-pound all the way to 20.
Okay.
And I know it's saved me on numerous times with either line that was frayed from going in a stick or rock and we were able to get the net underneath and net that fish, or just the knot strength, you know, because you get sometimes where, you know, you probably know this on some of your fibers, sometimes your drag gets a little too tight.
Yeah.
Or maybe the client maybe adjusted the drag, whatever it may be,
Tink.
and then all of a sudden it can break off. So I felt that the lines helped me. In monofilm, it's got a little more stretch, but there's just a lot of good lines out there. But I think it's one of those, you run what you brung. You know, I'm kind of old school like that. And I don't know if many guys use mono anymore. They really don't, unless they're throwing top water because it floats.
How much longer are you going to guide for?
I want to guide till I'll be 42 in about a week. So I'd like to guide till I'm about 65.
Nice.
I'd like to do another 20 years, say.
Right on.
Maybe 25. And then by then, maybe just...
You think you'll have it mastered by then?
Well, I don't think I'll have it mastered, but you know, that's something I've thought about. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, it's as long as the body can do it. I feel good still, but 20 years I can feel it. You know, I mean, you're doing it all the time and up and out of the boat, and I mean, you know, I'm not telling you anything different. You know,
absolutely.
We do it as long as we can, but it's very physical.
Yeah.
You know, and we're out in the weather and. You know, I think with now all the clothing and all the hats and stuff that's helping us, that's going to give us a little more longevity. Yeah. Because it's, we're out in the sun. It's scary out there, you know, for skin cancer and stuff. You got to be very careful. So.
If somebody wants to get a hold of you to go guiding on the many lakes that you guide on, how would they get a hold of you?
You can go, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. You can go on my website, rustybasshook.com. And then, you know, you can personal message me on Instagram or Facebook. That's the easiest way. And then I still do get a lot of emails. You know, guys will go on there and on my website, and it's got all my email address. And it's I still get the old school. I know email. It's funny how emails are kind of an old thing, man, isn't it?
I know. I messaged you on Facebook, man. We communicated through that.
Remember when emails were like everybody did that, and now it's like, I mean, for even our phone numbers now these days, you really don't need somebody's phone number. You can get a hold. You can just find the person. Right. It's just crazy. But I appreciate everybody. It's, you know, booking with me and enjoys this great sport. You know, if it's bass, trout, and it's very, very happy and lucky I can do it for a living and do it. Right. So it's super fun.
Rusty Brown, thanks so much for being here, brother.
Dude, man.
I learned a lot, man.
Thank you for having me, guy. I appreciate everything you do, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, brother. Let's see, get this thing. Here we go. Yeah.
Go?
Yeah, man. Thanks, Rusty.
You're welcome, buddy.